Let's talk about a nearly century-old ruling, Humphrey's Executor versus the United States. The 1935 Supreme Court decision that to this day limits a president's ability to fire commissioners at independent agencies like the Federal Trade Commission without just cause. This precedent, folks, was established to safeguard the independence of these regulatory bodies, to make sure they're not mere puppets of whoever is sitting in the Oval Office. Flash forward to the present, and we see this landmark ruling coming under intense scrutiny yet again. President Trump recently fired two Democratic federal trade commissioners, Alvaro Bedoya and Rebecca Kelly Slaughter. Their termination has sparked outrage, and you can see why. Both have stated that these firings are illegal, citing Humphrey's Executor as clear evidence that their ousting violates Supreme Court precedent. And frankly, if we're paying attention, this isn't just about two individuals, it's about the integrity of the entire system. Play this clip.
Federal Trade Commission. Rebecca Kelly Slaughter told CNBC that market stability could be eroded because of this action by the Trump administration.
This is about policing, the ability of the FTC to police markets and ensure honest businesses are protected instead of allowing companies that lie and cheat to get ahead. And it's not just about the FTC, it's about all of the structures of government that protect market stability. If I can be fired, I don't know why Jerome Powell can't be fired. And so the markets that depend on the stability provided by government institutions should be very concerned.
Alvaro Bedoya warned about the lack of independence when it comes to billionaires like Elon Musk's influence on Donald Trump, saying, quote, "When people hear this news, they need to not think about me. They need to think about the billionaires behind the president and his inauguration." Our first guest tonight, Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar, is now calling on Donald Trump to reverse the illegal firings of these two commissioners, writing in a letter, quote, "This action contradicts long-standing Supreme Court precedent, undermines Congress's constitutional authority to create bipartisan independent commissions, and upends more than 110 years of work at the FTC to protect consumers from deceptive practices and monopoly power. We urge you to rescind these dismissals so the FTC can get back to the people's work." Leading off our discussion tonight is Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota, a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator Klobuchar, always great to see you. You sent a letter urging Trump to reinstate these fired FTC commissioners. Why is this so concerning?
So in the middle of all the horror you just went through, including the Social Security Administration being decimated and finding out that seniors won't be able to call in when they have problems with their checks and they're going to have to go over there at whatever, age 90, this thing is actually really disturbing. Last year, the FTC returned $330 million to consumers from scams and frauds. They're the ones that said no to that grocery store merger. They're the ones taking on the biggest tech companies the world has ever known, with companies like Facebook and the like. And all of a sudden, Donald Trump has illegally fired the two Democratic-appointed commissioners. It's important to know that this has been a bipartisan commission for over 100 years, Jonathan. When a Democratic president comes in, it's 3-2, Democrat, Republican, and that's kind of how it works. And they've always worked together. They don't always agree, but they work together. So it is illegal, and that's very important to know as you talk about illegal acts, because 90 years ago, in a case called Humphrey's Executor, the U.S. Supreme Court said that this was legal to have these independent agencies and other agencies like it. So Donald Trump doesn't have a right to fire these two people. And actually, Justice Kavanaugh, when he was Judge Kavanaugh on the D.C. Circuit, commented that these kinds of commissions have been found to be legal by legal scholars and judges over the years. And you finally have the fact that when he tried to fire the two NLRB commissioners, National Labor Relations Board, right, two federal judges said, no, they're going back. So this was illegal. I believe they're going to sue and they will be reinstated.
Senator, despite Chief Justice Roberts' rebuke, Trump and his allies are continuing to attack judges. Does the Chief Justice have to do more? Can he do more?
Well, this was unprecedented for him to issue a statement like this. And this is on top of what he did at the end of last year when he said it was dangerous to attack federal rulings in a report. And now he has made it very clear that the route, if you disagree with the decision, is to appeal under the United States Constitution. And we know that a Supreme Court's ruling is final on units of government. So when they interpret the law. What Donald Trump is doing right now, not just in the case you mentioned, but he's messing around on the edges. They have obeyed court rulings in his first administration, and many right now that they are appealing. So the test is coming upon us about whether or not they actually are going to create a constitutional crisis. If that happens, the court has the inherent right to hold people in contempt that violate the law. So we're going to take this one step at a time, but I have to tell you, the threats on the judges, the increased kinds of violence that we're seeing, that we've been seeing for years with one federal judge having her kid killed just for coming to the door. These things are going on right now, and he is really playing with fire. And I am glad that Chief Justice made it clear what he thinks. But the obvious answer is going to be when the Supreme Court starts taking these cases on, as they have done already, where they show that they are following the law and not the wishes of a man who believes he's king with his court jester at his side. That would be billionaire Elon Musk, the billionaire jester of the Trump administration. That is not how this government was meant to be run.
One more question for you, Senator. Yesterday was Medicaid Day of Action as Trump and Musk are going after earned benefits. You recently talked with nursing home residents in Minnesota. What have you been hearing from your constituents, especially seniors?
It's really important for people to think about Medicaid as what it really is, and that is, in my state, 50% of people in nursing homes are on Medicaid. When my dad had late onset Alzheimer's and he had some savings, I knew the date that those savings were running out and that he was going to go on Medicaid. So many families are just like mine and know that date, or their loved ones are already on Medicaid. So this is about seniors, it's about people with disabilities, it's about kids, but it's also about entire families. And that's why Medicaid is so popular. And the way they have done this House budget, the Congressional Budget Office just said there's no way they can have this budget without cutting Medicaid with the numbers they put out there. So that's why we've had 120 events. Members of the House and the Senate working together, Jonathan, as well as governors, calling this out and asking people to rally to protect Medicaid.
Now, let's step back for a moment. Why does this matter? Well, the Federal Trade Commission is tasked with protecting consumer interests and regulating competition. If it becomes too politicized, let's say commissioners are fired at will for not aligning with a specific agenda, how can we trust it to act independently? You see, the independence of institutions like the Federal Trade Commission is what allows them to hold corporations accountable without fear or favor. This matter bears an uncomfortable resemblance to what I've seen in healthcare. Imagine if advisory boards or public health officials could be dismissed for not sharing the politics of an administration. The result? Confusion, distrust, and shattered confidence in the very systems designed to protect us. It's a slippery slope, and we're standing dangerously close to the edge here. And let's not forget, these firings are also headed to court. Both Bedoya and Slaughter are legally challenging their dismissal, and this could turn into a critical battle for the balance of power, not just in the Federal Trade Commission, but across all supposedly independent regulatory bodies. What comes next could very well define how we preserve the independence of institutions in this country. All right, so let's dig into a critical angle here. The influence of billionaires over our regulatory systems. Alvaro Bedoya, one of the recently fired federal trade commissioners, wasn't shy about raising these concerns. And honestly, it's hard not to see the connections. Look at tech titans like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Mark Zuckerberg, all figures with ties to the administration. Bedoya called this an interesting coincidence, but I'd argue it's more than that. You see, the problem arises when political donations and personal alliances enter the picture. These tech billionaires wield extraordinary power, with their companies facing multiple antitrust lawsuits. Amazon, for instance, has been under fire for allegedly tricking users into subscriptions they didn't want, and for practices that small businesses claim put them at an unfair disadvantage. Now, if the Federal Trade Commission, a body meant to protect consumers, suddenly starts losing its independence, don't we have to ask who benefits? And more importantly, who loses? And really, this trend isn't just about one company. Billionaire-backed influence undermines the trust in institutions that are supposed to act in the public's interest. Think about it. If watchdog agencies bend to political pressure, allowing powerful corporate entities to escape accountability, that's not democracy. That's oligarchy, plain and simple. Amazon's ongoing battles with the Federal Trade Commission highlight the stakes here. If deceptive consumer practices start to feel like just another cost of doing business, small businesses will suffer, consumers will pay dearly, and faith in antitrust enforcement will erode. It's no wonder Bedoya and others are so alarmed. There's a bigger picture here, and it's painted in dollars and political favors. Let's remind ourselves of what the Federal Trade Commission has accomplished when it's been allowed to do its job properly. Just last year, the agency returned over $330 million to consumers who had been wronged, highlighting its role in safeguarding the public from fraudulent and monopolistic practices. That's real money, folks, money back in the pockets of everyday people like you and me, and that's precisely what's at stake here. Now, critics like Senator Amy Klobuchar have raised serious alarms about the long-term implications of these firings. And hear me out. This isn't just political theater. Gutting an agency like the Federal Trade Commission does not just weaken antitrust enforcement. It hands monopolies a free pass to inflate prices, crush small competitors, and manipulate the market while we, the consumers, bear the cost. It's a short-sighted move with devastating potential to unravel decades of progress. But this isn't just about dollars and cents. It's about democracy, plain and simple. The Federal Trade Commission was built over a century ago with a mandate to serve the public's welfare, not corporate greed. Over the years, it has acted as a bulwark against concentrated power, ensuring that no single entity, be it a tech giant or a pharmaceutical oligarchy, dominates unfairly. Losing this independent oversight threatens to tilt the scales too far in favor of those who already hold the most power. We're at a crossroads, my friends. What's happening with the Federal Trade Commission is emblematic of a larger struggle, whether our institutions will serve the many or cater to the few. It's a test of how much we, as a society, value accountability and fairness. And it's up to all of us to demand answers, to hold our leaders accountable, and to advocate for the robust, independent institutions that uphold democracy. That wraps up today's episode of The Real 411. I want to personally thank each and every one of you for tuning in and for your continued support. It means more than you know. If you found value in today's discussion, please drop a comment. Follow us on all social media platforms and let us know what topics you'd like to see us cover next. Be sure to sign up for our email newsletter so you never miss an update or exclusive insight. And if you believe in independent media that digs deeper and dares to tell the truth, please consider following The Real 411 on Substack and Fanbase. We offer both free and paid subscriptions, and your support helps us continue producing content that informs, empowers, and sparks real conversation. Thanks again for being part of this journey, because remember, the story is never just the headline. Until next time, stay informed, stay bold, and stay real.